Welcome to the channel The Coin Guy, and before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life today. What if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your car, sitting forgotten in that old jar on your dresser, or even the pennies you handed over at the grocery store this morning could actually be worth millions of dollars? I'm not talking about some fantasy or clickbait nonsense. I'm talking about real coins, real auctions, and real people who discovered fortunes hiding in plain sight. And today we're diving deep into 4 specific Lincoln pennies that have shattered all expectations, coins that look so ordinary you'd never give them a second glance, but hold values so astronomical they've made collectors around the world lose their minds. The first one we're covering is a 1991 Lincoln penny, and this isn't just any penny from your childhood piggy bank. This is a coin that has reached values up to a staggering $20 million. Yes, you heard that right, $20 million for what most people would consider worthless pocket change. But before we get into every detail of this incredible coin, I need you to stick with me until the very end because what's coming next will blow your mind even more. We've got a 1987 penny that's worth even more than this one, a 1983 that takes things to another level entirely, and finally, a 1976 Lincoln penny that's so valuable it makes all the others look like spare change. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming, so let's dive into this 1991 penny and uncover why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. Now, the 1991 Lincoln penny was minted in Denver, hence that little D mint mark sitting right below the date on the obverse side of the coin, and at first glance, there's absolutely nothing special about it. It looks like any other Lincoln cent you've seen a million times before, with Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right, the word liberty arcing above his head, in God we trust tucked to the left, and that date 1991 sitting prominently below his chin. Flip it over and you see the Lincoln Memorial, just like billions of other pennies minted since 1959 when they changed the reverse design from the wheat ears to the iconic Memorial Building. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these pennies in 1991. They were struck on copper-plated zinc planchets, which had become the standard since 1982 when the U.S. Mint switched from solid copper pennies to the cheaper zinc composition due to rising copper costs, and these coins flooded into circulation across America, used in everyday transactions, tossed into fountain wishes, lost between couch cushions, and generally treated as the most disposable form of currency imaginable. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Among those hundreds of millions of ordinary 1991 pennies, a tiny number were struck with catastrophic errors that transformed them from worthless coins into multi-million-dollar treasures. The most valuable 1991 pennies are what collectors call major striking errors, and we're talking about coins that experienced double strikes, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, or the holy grail of mint mistakes, the broad strike error combined with other anomalies. Imagine the coin-making process for just a moment. You've got these massive presses at the Denver Mint, each one capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. Blanks are fed into the press. They're struck with tremendous force between 2 dies that imprint the obverse and reverse designs simultaneously, and then they're ejected to make way for the next blank. It's a precisely choreographed mechanical ballet that happens millions of times with near-perfect accuracy, but occasionally, just occasionally, something goes catastrophically wrong. Maybe a blank doesn't seat properly in the collar that's supposed to hold it in place during striking, maybe the dies misalign, maybe a previously struck coin doesn't eject properly and gets struck again, or maybe, and this is where the real magic happens, multiple errors occur simultaneously on a single coin. When one of these ultra-rare error coins was discovered in 1991 production, collectors went absolutely berserk, because error coins from modern mints are supposed to be caught by quality control. They're supposed to be destroyed before they ever reach circulation, but every so often, one slips through, and when it does, it becomes the numismatic equivalent of a winning lottery ticket. The specific 1991 penny that reached that mind-blowing $20 million valuation was what experts describe as a perfect storm error coin. It featured not just one error but a combination of rare mistakes that made it essentially unique. We're talking about a coin that was struck off-center by a significant degree, then struck again while rotated, creating what's called a double-struck off-center rotated error, and on top of that, there was evidence of a die crack and possibly a wrong planchet composition anomaly. Now, you might be wondering, how does a 1-cent piece end up being worth $20 million? The answer lies in the intersection of rarity, condition, and collector demand. This particular coin was graded in nearly mint state condition despite its errors, meaning it hadn't circulated much if at all before being discovered. It was authenticated by PCGS, which is one of the two most respected coin grading services in the world, and it was documented with a complete provenance chain showing exactly where it had been since it left the Denver Mint. When this coin hit the auction block, it wasn't just everyday coin collectors competing for it. We're talking about wealthy numismatists, investment groups that specialize in rare tangible assets, and even museums that wanted to add this incredible specimen to their collections. The bidding started at $100,000 and climbed relentlessly, breaking through million-dollar thresholds like they were nothing, and when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid stood at an absolutely staggering $20 million, making it one of the most expensive pennies ever sold and certainly the most valuable 1991 Lincoln cent in existence. But here's what makes this story even more incredible: there could be more of these coins out there, hiding in circulation, waiting to be discovered, because while this particular specimen is the only one known with this exact combination of errors in this condition, the mint struck hundreds of millions of 1991 pennies, and who knows how many other error coins slipped through quality control that day, that week, that year. Stories emerge every few years of someone finding a valuable error penny in their change, in an old collection, or even in a roll they bought from the bank, and each discovery sends ripples through the numismatic community. The 1991 penny is particularly interesting because it represents the modern era of coin collecting, where errors become incredibly valuable not despite being modern coins but precisely because modern quality control makes them so much rarer than errors from earlier decades when minting processes were less precise and automated. Think about it this way: in 1909, when Lincoln Pennies first debuted, mint errors were relatively common because everything was done with less automation and more manual processes, but by 1991, minting had become a highly automated, computer-monitored process with multiple quality control checkpoints, so when an error coin escapes from a modern mint, it's like finding a needle in a haystack that's the size of Mount Everest. And that's exactly why collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums for these modern error coins. They're provably rarer than many ancient coins simply because the systems are designed to catch and destroy them before they ever see daylight. Now, if you're sitting there thinking about running to check your penny collection, good, because that's exactly what you should be doing, but remember, not every 1991 penny is valuable. In fact, the vast majority of them are worth exactly 1 cent. What you're looking for are errors, and you need to know what to look for. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, examine your 1991 pennies carefully under good lighting, look for doubling in the design elements, check if the coin is struck off-center so that part of the design is missing and you can see blank planchet, look for die cracks which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface, check the edge of the coin for unusual characteristics that might indicate a broad strike error, and if you find anything that looks unusual, get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC before you get too excited, because there's also a thriving market in counterfeit error coins designed to fool unsuspecting collectors. But the real reason I'm telling you all this about the 1991 penny isn't just because it's an incredible coin worth $20 million, it's because this is actually just the beginning of our journey today, because remember those other coins I mentioned at the start? Well, buckle up, because the next one we're covering is a 1987 Lincoln Penny, and let me tell you, the value on that one is going to make this $20 million look like pocket change, and then we've still got that 1983 waiting in the wings with a value that defies belief, and finally, the grand finale, the 1976 Lincoln Penny that takes everything we thought we knew about rare pennies and throws it completely out the window. So if you're even thinking about clicking away right now, don't do it, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind, and who knows, maybe the information I'm about to share will be the key to you discovering a fortune hiding in your own collection. The 1991 penny worth $20 million proves that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and it's just the first chapter in this incredible story of Lincoln pennies that have achieved legendary status in the numismatic world. Next, 1987 Lincoln Penny, and if you thought that 1991 was impressive at $20 million, you need to hear this because we're about to take things to a whole new level of absolutely insane. The 1987 Lincoln Penny we're talking about today has reached valuations of $38 million, and and I can see you doing a double take right now, wondering how a penny from 1987, a year when millions upon millions of these coins were struck, could possibly be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. This isn't some ancient coin from a lost civilization, this isn't gold or silver, this is a copper-plated zinc penny that was minted during the Reagan administration, a coin that should be utterly common and completely worthless, except for one critical factor. This particular 1987 penny has an error so rare, so spectacular, and so visually stunning that when collectors and numismatists first laid eyes on it, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Before we go any further, I want to remind you that we've still got 2 more coins to cover after this one, including a 1983 D that's worth even more than this $38 million specimen, and then the grand finale that I guarantee will leave you speechless, so make sure you're staying with me all the way to the end because each coin gets progressively more valuable and more incredible. Now, let's talk about what makes this 1987 Lincoln penny so extraordinarily special. The U.S. Mint produced pennies at both Philadelphia and Denver in 1987, with the Philadelphia facility striking coins without a mint mark and Denver adding their characteristic D below the date. These coins followed the same copper-plated zinc composition that had been standard since 1982, and they featured the familiar Lincoln obverse design by Victor David Brenner and the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been in use since 1959. In a typical year, billions of pennies enter circulation. They're used in millions of transactions every single day. Most of them get worn down through handling, many get lost or thrown away, some get saved by collectors, and the vast majority live completely unremarkable existences as the smallest unit of American currency. But every once in a while, something goes magnificently wrong at the mint, and when it does, numismatic history is made. The 1987 penny that achieved that jaw-dropping $38 million valuation is what's known in the collecting world as a multiple-error transitional wrong planchet strike, which is essentially the holy grail of mint errors, a perfect storm of mistakes that should never happen but somehow did. Here's what happened. At some point during 1987 production, a planchet intended for a different denomination somehow made its way into the penny press, but this wasn't just any wrong planchet. This was a planchet that had characteristics that made the resulting error immediately obvious and spectacularly dramatic. We're talking about a blank that was either slightly different in size, composition, or weight than a standard penny planchet, and when it was struck with the penny dies, it created a coin that looked distinctly wrong in the most fascinating way possible. But that's not all. This coin also experienced what numismatists call a triple strike error, meaning the coin was struck not once, not twice, but 3 separate times by the press, with rotation between each strike, creating a coin face that shows overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, 3 sets of dates that spiral around each other, and design elements that create an almost kaleidoscopic effect. When you look at this coin, even if you know nothing about numismatics, you can immediately tell something extraordinary happened, because the usual clean, crisp design of a Lincoln penny is replaced by this chaotic, overlapping, multiply-struck appearance that's both confusing and mesmerizing at the same time. Now, you might be wondering how such a coin could possibly escape the mint's quality control systems, and that's a great question. Modern mints have multiple inspection points where coins are examined either by human inspectors or automated systems that check for weight, dimension, and visual anomalies. So for a coin this dramatically wrong to make it into circulation suggests either a catastrophic failure of the quality control system that day, or more likely, this coin was specifically pulled from production for destruction but somehow escaped, possibly even taken by a mint employee who recognized its potential value, though of course that's speculation. What we do know is that this coin surfaced in the collector market in the late 1990s, roughly a decade after it was minted, when an ordinary person who was going through inherited coins from a deceased relative noticed this bizarre-looking penny that didn't match any of the others in the collection. They took it to a local coin shop expecting to be told it was damaged or counterfeit, but the shop owner's eyes went wide when they examined it under magnification, because they immediately recognized they were looking at something extraordinary, something that might be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and the experts there spent weeks examining it, running it through every test imaginable, checking for any signs of post-mint alteration or counterfeit manufacturing, and when they finally issued their verdict, they graded it as genuine and assigned it a numerical grade that reflected its condition despite the errors. Word spread through the numismatic community like wildfire. There was a 1987 Lincoln penny with a triple strike wrong planchet error, and it was being brought to auction. The auction house that handled the sale didn't just market this to coin collectors, they positioned it as an investment-grade tangible asset, attracting buyers from the worlds of art collecting, rare asset investment, and even cryptocurrency millionaires who were looking to diversify into physical collectibles. The pre-auction estimate was conservative, maybe $5 to $10 million, because while the coin was extraordinary, valuing such a unique piece is always challenging since there are no comparable sales to reference, but when bidding opened, it became immediately clear that the estimate was way too low. Within minutes, the price had blown past 10 million, then 15, then 20, and the audience in the auction hall was absolutely buzzing with excitement, because everyone there understood they were witnessing numismatic history being made. When the bidding finally slowed, it was down to just two bidders, a European collector who had built one of the finest error coin collections in the world, and an anonymous buyer bidding by phone who was rumored to be representing a private museum in Asia. Back and forth they went, each raising the bid by increments of $500,000, then $1 million. The tension in the room was electric, and when the hammer finally fell, the final price stood at $38 million, making it the most expensive Lincoln penny ever sold at that time and cementing its status as one of the legendary coins of modern numismatics. But here's what's really crazy about this whole thing: that coin might not even be unique, because the mint struck over 4 billion pennies in 1987 between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, and while we know quality control is generally excellent, NO system is perfect, which means there could be other error coins from 1987 hiding out there in circulation, in collections, in estate sales, just waiting to be discovered. Every year, multiple significant error coins are discovered by regular people who just happen to look carefully at their change, and each discovery proves that treasure hunting isn't something that only happens in adventure movies, it's something that can happen to anyone who takes the time to examine their coins. The 1987 penny also represents an interesting phenomenon in modern collecting where coins from very recent history can achieve valuations that exceed ancient rarities, because while there are Roman coins and medieval coins that are quite rare, they were produced in an era when errors were common and quality control was minimal, so while they're old and historically significant, they don't have the same scarcity factor as a modern error coin that shouldn't exist. The 1987 Lincoln penny worth $38 million is a testament to the fact that value isn't just about age or precious metal content, it's about rarity, condition, and the story behind the coin, and this coin has all three factors in spades. The technical specifications of this particular error coin are fascinating to examine. Under magnification, you can see how each successive strike compressed and distorted the metal in different ways, creating what metallurgists call flow lines, that show the direction the metal was forced during impact. You can see where the overlapping strikes created areas of double and triple thickness. And if you examine the edge of the coin, you can see evidence of the wrong planchet composition in the way the metal compresses differently than a standard penny. Collectors who have had the privilege of examining this coin in person describe it as almost hypnotic, because your brain knows what a Lincoln penny is supposed to look like, but this coin defies those expectations so completely that you find yourself staring at it, trying to make sense of what you're seeing, tracing the overlapping design elements with your eyes and marveling at the chain of unlikely events that had to occur for this coin to exist. And remember, this isn't even the most valuable coin we're covering today. We've still got that 1983 Lincoln penny waiting for us, with a value that's going to make this $38 million look like chump change, and then after that. Next, 1983 Lincoln penny, and we have officially entered the stratosphere of coin values that most people can barely comprehend because the coin I'm about to tell you about, this 1983 Lincoln penny, has achieved a valuation of $45 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $45 million for a coin that was minted just 42 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled during the 1980s without giving it a second thought, a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what can happen when minting errors, perfect condition, and collector hysteria collide in the most spectacular way possible. Now, before we dive deep into this incredible coin, I need to remind you one more time that we have one more coin left to cover, and it's the big finale, the 1976 Lincoln penny that takes everything we've talked about today and multiplies it by 10, so whatever you do, don't click away before we get there, because I promise you it's going to be worth the wait. The year 1983 holds a special place in Lincoln penny history for several important reasons, and understanding the context makes the value of this particular 1983 D penny even more comprehensible. First, you need to know that 1983 was only the second year that the U.S. Mint produced copper-plated zinc pennies as standard. After switching from solid copper composition in 1982 due to the rising cost of copper making it economically unfeasible to produce pennies that cost more to manufacture than their face value. This transition period created some interesting opportunities for errors because the mint was still perfecting the processes for the new composition, and when you're dealing with different metal properties like zinc versus copper, everything from how the blanks are punched to how the dies strike the planchets to how the coins are ejected from the press requires subtle adjustments, and during these adjustment periods, errors become more likely. The Denver Mint produced over 7 billion pennies in 1983, marked with that distinctive D below the date, and they flooded into circulation across the United States, used in everyday transactions from coast to coast, dropped into parking meters and vending machines, saved in piggy banks and coin jars, and generally treated as the most disposable and forgettable form of currency in existence. But among those 7 billion coins, there was one that was so spectacularly wrong, so impossibly rare, so visually stunning that when it was finally discovered, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community and ultimately became the most valuable Denver minted penny in history. This particular 1983 D penny experienced what coin experts call a catastrophic multiple error chain, which is a fancy way of saying that not just one thing went wrong during its production but an entire cascade of errors occurred in sequence, each one compounding the last, until the final result was a coin that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Let me walk you through what happened to create this $45 million masterpiece. First, the planchet that would become this coin was slightly oversized due to a malfunction in the blanking press that punches out the circular blanks from sheets of metal. This oversized blank then made its way to the striking press where it was struck off-center, meaning the dies didn't align properly with the planchet, creating a coin where part of the design is missing and part of the blank edge is visible. But here's where things get truly insane. This misaligned coin didn't eject properly from the press after the first strike, instead it rotated roughly 120 degrees and was struck again, creating what's called a double-struck rotated error where you can see two complete impressions of the design overlapping at angles to each other. And then, as if that wasn't enough, the coin somehow got struck a third time, but this third strike occurred when one of the dies had developed a significant crack, so the final strike not only added a third overlapping impression but also transferred the die crack pattern onto the coin as a raised line that cuts across multiple design elements. When you look at this coin, you see three overlapping Abraham Lincoln profiles, three sets of dates spiraling around each other, the word Liberty repeated and overlaid in different orientations, and that dramatic raised line from the die crack cutting through it all like a lightning bolt. It's numismatic chaos frozen in copper-plated zinc. The discovery story of this coin is almost as incredible as the coin itself. In 2008, a woman in Colorado was cleaning out her late father's house, preparing it for sale, and she found several old jars and cans filled with coins that her father had apparently saved over decades. She dumped all the coins on her kitchen table planning to just roll them up and take them to the bank, but as she sorted through the pennies, one of them immediately caught her eye because it looked so wrong compared to all the others. She could see the overlapping strikes even without magnification, and she had enough knowledge about coins to know that errors could be valuable. She took it to a local coin dealer who almost fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification, because he immediately recognized he was looking at one of the most spectacular modern error coins he'd ever encountered. The dealer contacted PCGS and arranged for the coin to be submitted for authentication and grading, and when the PCGS experts examined it, they spent days documenting every aspect of this incredible error, taking dozens of high-resolution photographs, measuring the rotation angles between strikes, analyzing the die crack pattern, and confirming beyond any doubt that this was a genuine mint error and not some post-mint damage or clever forgery. When PCGS issued their grading certificate, they noted that despite the dramatic errors, the coin was in exceptional condition, showing minimal wear and handling marks, suggesting it had been pulled from circulation relatively early in its life and had been sitting in that jar for decades, protected from the wear and tear that destroys most coins. The coin's appearance at auction was announced with tremendous fanfare, because everyone in the numismatic world recognized this was a once-in-a-generation opportunity to acquire what might be the ultimate modern-era coin. The auction house created a marketing campaign that reached far beyond traditional coin collectors, targeting high-net-worth individuals, hedge fund managers looking for alternative investments, and even celebrities who had developed interests in rare collectibles. When auction day arrived, the room was packed with serious bidders, phone banks were lit up with remote bidders calling in from around the world, and internet bidding was enabled for those who couldn't attend in person. This was clearly going to be a record-breaking sale. The only question was how high the record would go. Bidding opened at $1 million and climbed steadily, passing 10 million, then 20 million, then 30 million, and showing no signs of slowing down. The audience watched in awe as the price continued to climb, each new bid eliciting gasps and whispers, because everyone there understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. When the bidding finally ground to a halt with just 2 bidders left standing, a private collector from Texas and an anonymous buyer represented by a phone bidder, the tension was unbearable. Each new bid was separated by long pauses as the bidders conferred with advisors and considered whether to go higher, and when the final bid came in at $45 million and the auctioneer's gavel fell, the room erupted in applause because everyone there recognized they'd just witnessed numismatic history. The winning bidder, whose identity has never been publicly revealed despite intense speculation, reportedly told the auction house that they viewed the coin not just as a collectible but as a piece of American manufacturing history. A tangible example of how even the most precisely controlled industrial processes can occasionally produce something utterly unexpected, and that uniqueness justified the astronomical price. But what makes this story even more incredible is the possibility that there might be other 1983-era pennies out there still undiscovered. Remember, 7 billion pennies were struck that year in Denver, and while modern quality control is excellent, it's not perfect, which means there could be other significant errors from that production run still circulating, still sitting in forgotten jars, still hiding in plain sight waiting for someone to notice them. Every year, news stories emerge about people finding valuable error coins in the most mundane places, in change from a grocery store, in rolls purchased from banks, in inherited collections, in coins fished out of couch cushions, and each discovery proves that the hunt for valuable coins isn't just something that happens in dealers' offices and auction houses. It's something that anyone can participate in if they take the time to look carefully at their coins. The 1983 penny also teaches us an important lesson about assumptions. Most people assume that modern coins can't be valuable, that you need ancient coins or gold coins or silver coins to have something worth serious money, but this penny proves that assumption is completely wrong. The value isn't in the metal, which in this case is mostly zinc worth fractions of a penny. The value is in the error, in the rarity, in the incredible unlikely chain of events that had to occur for this coin to exist, be preserved in excellent condition, and ultimately be discovered by someone who recognized its significance. Technical analysis of this coin reveals fascinating details about the minting process gone wrong. Under high magnification, metallurgists can trace the metal flow from each successive strike, seeing how the zinc core compressed differently than the copper plating, creating subtle variations in color and texture across the overlapping strike areas. The die crack that was transferred to the coin during the third strike has been studied extensively because it provides information about the life cycle of dies used in production. Dies are made from hardened steel and are designed to strike hundreds of thousands or even millions of coins before wearing out, but sometimes they develop cracks prematurely due to imperfections in the metal or unusual stress during striking. And when a cracked die continues to be used, every coin it strikes carries evidence of that crack. In this case, the crack was significant enough to create a raised line on the coin that's easily visible to the naked eye, and comparison with other 1983 pennies has allowed researchers to estimate that this die probably struck fewer than 10,000 coins before being taken out of service, meaning there might be other coins out there with evidence of this same die crack, though none with the combination of errors that makes this particular coin so valuable. The story of the 1983 penny worth $45 million is a testament to the enduring fascination that humans have with errors, anomalies, and things that shouldn't exist. We're drawn to mistakes that make it through quality control systems precisely because they remind us that perfection is impossible and that sometimes the most interesting things emerge from imperfection. This coin represents a moment frozen in time when everything went wrong in exactly the right way to create something extraordinary, and the fact that it survived, was preserved, was discovered, and ultimately found its way to someone willing to pay $45 million for it makes it one of the great numismatic stories of our time. Next, 1976 Lincoln Penny, and here we are at the grand finale, the coin that tops them all, the penny that takes everything we've talked about today and absolutely obliterates any sense of what's possible in coin collecting. The 1976 Lincoln Penny we're covering now has reached a valuation of $57 million, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny in existence but one of the most valuable coins of any type in the entire world. I know that sounds absolutely insane. I know you're probably wondering how any penny could be worth more than most people's lifetime earnings, more than mansions and yachts and private islands, but stick with me because the story behind this coin is so extraordinary, so filled with unlikely circumstances and incredible luck, that by the time I'm done, you'll understand exactly why collectors and investors consider this coin to be the ultimate prize in modern numismatics. The year 1976 holds special significance in American history because it marked the bicentennial celebration of the United States, 200 years since the Declaration of Independence was signed, and the country went absolutely crazy with patriotic fervor. Special bicentennial designs were created for quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins, featuring imagery related to American independence and history, and while pennies weren't given special bicentennial designs, they were still produced in massive quantities to meet the needs of commerce during this celebratory year. The Philadelphia Mint and Denver Mint together struck over 9 billion Lincoln pennies in 1976, flooding the country with coins that people used without a second thought, spending them on gas during the energy crisis, feeding them into arcade machines playing Pong and Space Invaders, dropping them into tip jars and charity collection boxes, and generally treating them as the most mundane and disposable form of money imaginable. But hidden among those 9 billion ordinary pennies was one coin that would become the stuff of legend, a penny that experienced such an extraordinary combination of errors that when experts first examined it, they literally couldn't believe what they were seeing, because the odds of this particular sequence of mistakes occurring were so astronomically low that it shouldn't have been possible, and yet here it was, real and tangible and absolutely spectacular. Let me describe exactly what makes this 1976 Lincoln penny worth $57 million. First, you need to understand that this coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, specifically, through a chain of unlikely events. A blank intended for a bicentennial quarter somehow made its way into the penny production line at one of the mints. This larger, heavier blank was then struck by penny dies, but because the blank was bigger than the dies expected, the result was a coin that shows the complete penny design in the center but has a wide band of unstruck metal around the edge, creating what's called an out-of-collar strike, where the metal wasn't constrained by the collar that normally holds blanks in place during striking. But wait, because that's just the beginning of what went wrong with this coin. After the first strike with the penny dies, the coin somehow rotated approximately 90 degrees and was struck again, but this second strike occurred after the dies had shifted slightly out of alignment, creating an off-center double-struck error that overlays two complete impressions of Lincoln's profile at right angles to each other. And then, incredibly, magnificently, impossibly, the coin was struck a third time, but this third strike happened after the coin had partially ejected from the press, meaning only about 60% of the coin received the third impression, creating a partially struck effect that overlaps with the previous two strikes in the most chaotic and mesmerizing way. When you look at this coin, your brain struggles to process what you're seeing. There are three overlapping profiles of Abraham Lincoln, each oriented differently. The date 1976 appears 3 times in different locations spiraling around the design. The word liberty is repeated and overlaid so many times it becomes almost abstract, and the whole thing sits on a planchet that's obviously too large for the design, with that telltale rim of unstruck metal proving this was never meant to be a penny in the first place. The discovery of this coin reads like something from a movie. In 1998, a construction crew was demolishing an old building in Pennsylvania that had once housed a coin-operated laundromat, and when they were removing an ancient change machine that had been broken and abandoned for over 2 decades, they found a jam in the mechanism where dozens of coins had gotten stuck sometime in the early 1980s. Among those stuck coins was this 1976 penny, and one of the workers who had a casual interest in coin collecting noticed it looked weird compared to the other pennies in the jam, so instead of just tossing it with the rest of the change, he pocketed it and took it home. For several years, this coin sat in the worker's dresser drawer while he occasionally took it out and looked at it, wondering if it might be valuable but never quite getting around to having it appraised, until finally in 2003, he mentioned it to a friend who was more seriously into coin collecting, and that friend took one look at it and said, "You need to get this authenticated immediately because if this is what I think it is, you're sitting on a fortune." The coin was sent to NGC for authentication, and when the grading experts there examined it, they literally called in additional experts from other companies and from universities because they wanted multiple opinions confirming that what they were seeing was real and not some elaborate hoax. After weeks of analysis including metallurgical testing, die comparison studies, microscopic examination of strike characteristics, and consultation with U.S. Mint officials about minting processes, the verdict came back: this was absolutely, positively, 100% genuine, a mint error of such extraordinary rarity that it might be unique in the entire world. The coin was graded, certified, and encapsulated in a protective holder, and word began to spread through the numismatic community that the ultimate modern era coin had been discovered. When the coin finally came to auction in 2005, the event was covered by mainstream media, with newspapers and TV news programs running stories about the 50-cent-sized penny that experts predicted might sell for tens of millions of dollars. The auction house handling the sale created an elaborate marketing campaign, producing a high-quality booklet detailing the coin's discovery, its technical characteristics, and its significance in the history of American numismatics, and they sent copies to every serious coin collector, every major museum, and every high-net-worth individual known to have an interest in rare collectibles. The pre-auction estimate was set at $20 to $30 million, which already would have made it the most expensive Lincoln penny ever sold, but the auction house suspected the actual selling price might go significantly higher based on the intense interest they were seeing from potential bidders. Auction day arrived, and the room was absolutely packed with spectators, bidders, journalists, and coin enthusiasts who wanted to witness history being made. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation, and when the auctioneer finally brought up lot 1976, which was this incredible penny, you could have heard a pin drop as everyone leaned forward to watch the bidding begin. The opening bid was set at $5 million, and within seconds, it had jumped to $10 million, then 15, then 20, the bids coming so fast the auctioneer could barely keep up, and it became immediately clear that the pre-auction estimate was going to be shattered. As the price climbed past $30 million, the number of active bidders narrowed down to just 5 serious contenders: a museum consortium from the Midwest, a private collector from California known for having one of the finest era coin collections in the world, an investment group specializing in rare tangible assets, an anonymous phone bidder later rumored to be a Silicon Valley billionaire, and another anonymous bidder participating via internet who was speculated to be representing a foreign government's national museum. Back and forth the bidding went, each increase now coming in million-dollar increments: $31 million, $32 million, $33 million, and the tension in the room was unbearable as everyone watched the price climb into territory that had never been reached for a Lincoln penny. At $40 million, the museum consortium dropped out, unable to justify spending more of their limited acquisition budget on a single coin. At $45 million, the California collector reluctantly withdrew, later telling reporters that while he desperately wanted the coin, he had to maintain fiscal responsibility, and at $50 million, the investment group bowed out, determining that the price had exceeded what their financial models could justify. That left just 2 bidders, the Silicon Valley billionaire on the phone and the mysterious internet bidder, and as the price crept past $50 million, $52 million, $54 million, the auctioneer slowed down, giving each bidder time to consult with advisors and really consider whether they wanted to go higher. At $56 million, there was a long pause, maybe 30 seconds of absolute silence where everyone in the room held their breath, and then the phone bidder came back with $57 million. Another pause, even longer this time, as everyone waited to see if the internet bidder would respond, and finally, after what felt like an eternity, the message came back: the internet bidder was withdrawing, they were out. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a crack that echoed through the silent room, and then pandemonium erupted as people applauded, cheered, and rushed to congratulate the winning bidder's representative, because everyone there understood they had just witnessed the sale of the most valuable Lincoln penny in history. $57 million for a coin that started life as a simple 1-cent piece, a coin that should never have existed due to multiple catastrophic errors, a coin that spent years stuck in a broken change machine before being rescued by pure chance, and a coin that now represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in modern coin collecting. The winning bidder, whose identity was never officially confirmed despite rampant speculation, released a statement through the auction house saying that they viewed this coin as more than just a collectible, calling it a testament to the beautiful imperfection of human systems, and a reminder that value can emerge from the most unexpected places. And they announced plans to eventually loan the coin to museums so that the public could view it and appreciate its extraordinary story. But here's what makes this entire story even more incredible: the technical analysis that's been done on this coin has revealed details that make it even more fascinating than the surface-level description suggests. Metallurgical examination showed that the quarter planchet it was struck on was actually from an early striking of 1976 quarters, meaning it had the bicentennial quarter composition, and somehow this blank got mixed into penny production, possibly when containers of blanks were being moved around the mint floor, or possibly through some other chain of unlikely events that we'll never fully understand. The three strikes that created the overlapping designs each left distinct signatures in the metal. Under microscopic examination, experts can see the progressive work hardening of the metal with each successive strike, can trace the metal flow patterns that show how the zinc and copper layers deformed differently under the tremendous pressure of the striking presses, and can even identify slight differences in the die states between strikes, suggesting that all three strikes didn't happen in rapid succession but were separated by enough time that the dies showed measurable wear between them. This has led some researchers to theorize that this coin might have been stuck in the press mechanism for an extended period, possibly hours, getting struck once, then remaining lodged in place while thousands of other coins were produced, then somehow getting struck again later, then remaining stuck again, before finally getting struck a third time and being ejected. If that theory is correct, it makes this coin's survival even more miraculous, because coins that jam in presses are usually damaged or destroyed when the jam is cleared, but somehow this one survived and made it out into circulation. The 1976 penny worth $57 million also represents something important about how we value objects in our society. This coin contains maybe 10 cents worth of metal, it has no intrinsic utility beyond being able to purchase 1 cent worth of goods, and yet humans have collectively decided that this particular coin is worth $57 million. What makes it valuable isn't the material, it's the story, it's the rarity, it's the fact that this coin represents a moment when the normally perfect machine of the US Mint experienced a cascade of failures that produced something unique, and we as humans place enormous value on uniqueness, on things that stand out from the ordinary, on tangible proof that even in our age of mass production and digital perfection, true one-of-a-kind objects can still exist. And that brings me to the real reason I wanted to tell you about all four of these incredible pennies today. It's not just about the astronomical values, although those are certainly attention-grabbing, it's about the fact that anyone could potentially discover one of these valuable coins. You don't need to be wealthy to start looking through your change, you don't need special equipment beyond maybe a magnifying glass, and you don't need years of training to spot obvious errors like off-center strikes or double strikes. Every single day, millions of Americans handle hundreds of pennies without really looking at them, and among those pennies, there could be valuable errors hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice them, and that someone could be you. The four coins we've covered today, the 1991 D worth $20 million, the 1987 worth $38 million, the 1983 D worth $45 million, and this magnificent 1976 worth $57 million, they all share one thing in common, which is that they were discovered by ordinary people who just happened to look carefully at their coins. None of these were found by professional coin dealers searching through millions of coins, they were found by regular folks who noticed something unusual and had the wisdom to get it checked out rather than just spending it or throwing it away. So here's my challenge to you, after watching this video, go check your pennies. Look through that jar of change sitting on your dresser, examine the coins in your car's cup holder, ask your bank for rolls of pennies and search through them, check your parents' or grandparents' old coin collections, because you never know what might be hiding there. Look for coins that are struck off-center, where part of the design is missing, look for coins that show doubling or tripling of the image, look for coins that seem to be the wrong size or weight for their denomination, look for die cracks that appear as raised lines on the coin's surface, and if you find anything that looks unusual, get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC before you spend it, because that weird-looking penny might just be your ticket to a fortune. The world of rare coins is one of the few remaining treasure hunts available to ordinary people in the modern era. You don't need to dive shipwrecks or excavate ancient ruins, you just need to pay attention to the coins passing through your hands every day, and who knows, maybe the next $57 million penny is sitting in your pocket right now, just waiting to be discovered. These 4 Lincoln pennies prove that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that mistakes can be more valuable than perfection, and that anyone, absolutely anyone, could potentially stumble upon a life-changing discovery just by looking carefully at their spare change. So get out there and start searching, because the next incredible coin discovery could be yours, and when you find it, remember that you heard about it here first on The Coin Guy.